Hi everyone, welcome to our first video of the year 2021. We're going to be talking about shading today, and shading is where you see the effects of light. And by the effects of light is basically how you see. If you go in a closet and close the door, there's no light in there, you can't see anything. So we see the world because of light, but it does have, there's more to it than just I see a dog, there it is. There's areas that are lighter and darker on the dog because of where there's more the dog is brightly lit up from the light source and so on. So if a light is shining down this, let's say the eraser's a dog, the light's shining down this way on the dog, you'll notice there's areas that are darker, maybe even only here, that are away from the light. And so shading is when we draw things and that you add the three-dimensional quality because you show where the shading is. We know on this eraser it's the same light value all the way around, but because of where the light hits it, it's darker and lighter on some areas, and that's what makes it appear 3D. There's no 3D look to the worksheet, it's very flat. So shading is showing how things are three-dimensional because of where the light hits them. Actually, shading is surprisingly simple. There's only so many concepts to it, and it's really easy to fake. I'm going to write down, you can fake it. But the most important thing is that you must be very consistent with what you're doing throughout the piece of art. You can't just have one part of it have lighting from one direction, another thing have lighting from another direction. Everything in your design has to be lit from the same direction. Once you've done that, you can make up a pretend world that has a certain type of shading. Just be consistent, it's believable. So for the sake of my drawing, I'm going to draw another circle. And you can include this if you want, just to show that something else that almost is round, but not quite. That's my first messed up drawing of 2021. I was going to say, just everything's going to have our same consistent lighting situation. So you need this worksheet. If you don't have this worksheet, see I wrote you can fake it. Find it on the bulletin board under where it says downloads. You need an eraser. I think the erasers, I've been buying this for years, but I think that company actually went out of business with COVID, unfortunately. So I'm trying out a new eraser today to see how I like it. Unfortunately, it's more expensive, but anyway, I'm trying it today. So take your worksheet. You need a 2B pencil. If you do not like 2B at all, definitely you could use a 2H. I just strongly prefer the 2B. We're going to do a little smudging today too. And that also works better with the 2B, but that's up to you. You can use a 2H. I'm going to use a marker because we're going to write down some definitions, but you don't have to. You can do the whole thing in pencil, and that would be fine with me. The finished product, this is just an old sample. Looks something like this or like this. There's a couple old samples. They can look a little different, but it has a lot of definitions, and then it's going to be an example of the shading there. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to write my name here at the top so I know that you did your own worksheet, and I'll go period 1 because I don't have one. That's actually a block. And then whatever my box number is, and when we get back in the classroom, R2D2, I usually say that's my box number, even though we know that's another number. Okay, so what we're doing with shading, the first thing we have to start off with is value, which is, so you write down the definitions when I write down the definitions, which is the relative, that means in relation to something else, lightness or darkness of an object. Lightness or darkness of an object. So how light or dark is it? So in the case of this worksheet, it's very, very light, especially compared to the tabletop, which is darker, so it looks even lighter. So I would say this is a number 1 because it's white, and this background piece is like another number 6 or 7. It's pretty dark. Okay, so that's how light or dark is what we're drawing. So the first step we're going to take is we're going to add a value to this. How light or dark is it? We're going to pretend we're drawing like a red rubber ball. So we want to add a nice smooth value. We don't want to have a whole bunch of texture. So I'm using the side of my 2B pencil first. If you have a preferred way of doing this, you can do another slightly different if you want, but we're going to add in some lights and darks, so you want it nice and smooth and flat. So the first thing I'm doing is basically, basically I'm adding a value to it. You know, and this sample right here is kind of light. I might go a little bit darker than that, but that's what I'm doing right now. Something like that, and then you're going to probably smudge it nice and smooth. It'll be easier to work with. So let's say that that was a toy ball. Maybe it's a yellow one. And then let's get ourselves up to a slightly darker colored one. So this is how I like to do. I'm gonna change directions. Still using the side of my pencil because I want to avoid lines if I can. I'm getting right up here next to the edge of it. Like I said, you may have a better way of doing this. This is just how I do it. The absolute most professional way to do it would be go very, very slow with the tip of a pencil, but this isn't a piece of art. This is just a worksheet, so I'm not too worried about that. Trying to avoid lines. You can see I'm getting some there. I may have to erase those out later. So kind of crisscrossing to get in these other areas, and I want to make sure it looks as even as possible when I'm done. So in a minute I'm going to smudge it and see how I did. Right now I'm just adding some graphite everywhere I can. And probably I don't like those there. I drew kind of next to those lines I didn't like to see if I can disguise them, and then when I smudge it, if they don't go away, I'll have to erase it and fix it. And now I'm taking my second one over here. This is just showing you, like I said, that everything in the same drawing has the same lightness or darkness. Okay, so then what we're going to do, I kind of put in my value. Now I'm going to smudge it up a little bit and see. Oh, I don't like those two little spots. Get rid of that little spot. This little spot. I think I dropped the pencil and did that. Smudge it up. See if you can get it nice and even looking. Mrs. Rose, what is there something on my paper here? It might be that eraser. You can decide we don't like that eraser. Something added some kind of texture there. Well, I'm going to make sure I don't let the residue get in the way. I usually have this strange problem I'm having. But anyway, I have to let it go, I guess. You want it nice and smooth, so I smudged it, and I'm going to take an eraser and clean up outside of the circle. So a nice value. Try not to make those blobs that I made. I think it has something to do with your residue of this eraser. Okay, so I'm cleaning up a little bit. I would definitely, if you need cleaning up, do that now. And then shake your drawing off to get in. If you have one of these blending stuff still, I'm not seeing mine, you could use that. That might come in handy right now. Okay, so we have a nice smooth area, and that just represents how light or dark is my my object I'm drawing. And if it has like this sweater I'm wearing today is lighter than my pants, you know, so I would have to put those in as two different things. Okay, so the next step we have is just writing kind of the definition of shading down. And so the definition of shading is drawing and emphasizing the effects of the light source. So drawing and emphasizing. Remember I said you could write this in pencil. You don't have to write in pen. I just wanted to make sure you could read it. The effects. Sometimes use the E when I'm supposed to use the A, sorry. Of the drawing and emphasizing the effects of the light source. So the light source is, where's the light coming from? I'm in the classroom right now. I've got overhead lights and I have lights coming in through the windows, and there's multiple lights in the classroom. So I'd have to figure out where's my main light source coming from, and it's going to be a little fuzzy. But if you only have one light source, that's a little easier to work with. Anyway, for light source, it's location of the strongest light. So we write down location of the strongest light. So what is the situation in my drawing? Whether it's something I'm really looking at or it's something I'm imagining, I need to know what the light source is. And for the case of this drawing, we're just making it up. I still need to know. I have a personal preference of over my left shoulder. For some reason, I like, if I'm making it up, I almost always choose that. But it could be anywhere. Usually we don't show the actual sun in our drawings, but we know where the sun would be so that our shading is all consistent, or whatever else it is. I'm going to separate this with a line. So what we're going to do for this project is we're going to make up a light source, and our light source is going to be up here in the corner. What I want you to do is I want you to draw some type of interior light. So I'm going to draw a little old-fashioned light bulb, and that's going to be where the light is coming from in my drawing, just so I know exactly where it is. And I'm going to write the words light source up here. So I want you to draw an interior light source. So don't draw the sun or the moon, those are outside, right? So you can draw a light bulb, a flame, a candle, a match, a lamp, flashlight. Draw a little something up here, that's your light source, and in the case of a worksheet, it's going to be on the drawing. Normally it would not be on the drawing, it would be located somewhere else. So draw a little picture there of wherever your light source happens to be. The next thing we're putting in is the shadow. So if our light source is coming from here, it's going to shine down on this and create a shadow on something else. The important thing about shadows is they happen to something else. So for a definition for a shadow, is a dark area on one object, which is our ground here, caused by another object, which is our ball, blocking the light source. So the ball is not letting the light come down here, so it's causing a shadow. So dark area on on one object caused by another object blocking the light source. So it's going to be dark down here because my object won't let the light shine on it directly. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out about where it would be. And to tell you the truth, we know the shape of it. It actually be a circle. So if I was standing above it looking down, it would definitely look like a circle. But I'm looking at it from the side, so it's going to look like an oval. I can tell because the light source is here that it's going to block the light here, and it's going to block the light way over to here. So that's what my light source is going to be. And then on my little object over here, it's going to be placed slightly different from here to here, but they have the same light source. So it's going to, it's going to look consistent for the drawing. So, how do I draw my, what does the shadow look like? What's a general guide for that? So there's two types of shadows. One is called from the sun or sunlight, and one is radiating light. So if you want, you can sketch this with me, but if I have two trees, let's say they're pine trees out in the forest, and let's say they're pretty much the same tree. They're started growing the very same year. And if one of them has light from the sun, then the shadow it gives it is very, very strong. It's very, very specific. You can see exactly where something is, and it's directly like kind of like a mirror image. And like I said, it's going to be pretty dark. Like if you're out, next time you're out on a walk outside, I'm not making a very pretty shadow, but you're getting the idea. It's a very dark, very concise shadow. So next time you're out on a walk, take a look at how strong your shadows are outdoors. They're very dark and specific. If, however, your shadow is coming from something nearby that's radiating, so let's say there's a hill up here and a person, and they have a flashlight. Don't you love my drawing? Anyway, so their flashlight is shining on the tree. You get a completely different type of shadow. So what happens is this person's a lot closer, so there's an angle coming out from your object, from according where the light is coming out, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it gets away. Also, this flashlight is nothing near the power of the sun or the moon. The moon's up here too. So it's going to be a weaker shadow. So it's going to start off kind of specific in type, and it's going to slowly get lighter and lighter and lighter, and eventually kind of fades away. So this type of radiating shadow, these are the types you see indoors. Like if you look down, depending on if you have a carpet or if you have like a wood floor where you are, look at the shadow by your feet or by the legs in the room. You'll notice it's very specific right next to the object and just kind of fades away as more light creeps in. This is called a radiating light, and this is light from the sun. Very powerful, very parallel, but this one, it angles away and tends to fade out. So two different shadows. So what do we have here? We have a light source that's indoors, so we know it's going to fade away. So it's not, this would be the oval shape. Remember I made the marks in here a couple of minutes ago. So this is the oval shape we started with. However, we have this type of a shadow, so it's going to kind of tend to fade out a little bit. So I'm going to open it up a little bit bigger, and then when I put it in, I'm going to fade it out. So that's how I'm coming up with the location and the type of shadow I have. So let me give you the two definitions, and then I think we're going to switch to the second video. So for the sunlight, causes shadows that are parallel. I'm going to draw another line here. Causes shadows that are parallel. And radiating light, that means a closer light source, causes shadows that fade away from objects. Causes shadows that fade away from objects. And here I'm going to write also the word dark. The shadows from the sun and the moon are very dark, and these we'll call this just the color also fade. So I'm going to end this video here. I don't want the videos to get too long, and then I'll give you another video for the second half of this.